based around is acidic sliming your opponent into oblivion. So the first thing I look for in deck lists is how many acidic slimes are in main deck, and then in the sideboards, Corvese has 3 in his main deck and the 4th one in the board. For
and
McClain?
McClain only has 2 main deck, but he does board into 4.
Okay.
So again, being on the play is also very huge. Harry Corvese on the right, he is on the play. He leads with just an Overwhelm Tomb. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a mana accelerant, which is another, obviously, mana advantage is very important in this matchup to go along with the mana denial. So we've seen Reanimator decks in the past. They're very mana hungry, so generally whoever can get the 5 mana first and start getting those acidic slimes into play has a pretty big advantage.
We see a mulch here for Corvese. He's going to turn over 2 Angel Serenities, a Thraptusk, and Unburial Rites. So his Unburial Rites engine is online. We could see an Angel Serenity as soon as turn number 4, assuming Corvese has more lands. Makes you wonder if that mulch was, I need lands, or that mulch was, I need cards in my graveyard.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he has the lands, I think he's in good shape, because the one way you can actually get out of not having mana accelerants is if you can actually reanimate an Angel Serenity and deal with your opponent's mana accelerants before they can get that acidic slime into play. So pretty good sequence of events for Harry, despite the fact that he didn't have a turn 1 mana accelerant and his opponent did.
So now you see McClain casting a mulch of his own. 4 is going to go to the hand. Restoration Angel, Thragtusk, and Abrupt Decay going to the graveyard. So he does find at least 1.
So a much worse mulch there. Even though he did find the land, he didn't get an Unburial Rites, he didn't get a Fatty. I believe he does have an Unburial Rites in his graveyard, in his hand, but he doesn't have a really solid Fatty like Angel Serenity or Acidic Slime, which is the cards you really want to reanimate in this mirror match. So he's still going to be hard, but he does have a Fiend Hunter, which can potentially deal with the Angel Serenity if it gets reanimated. However, Harry does have another Unburial Rites in his hand, so he'll be able to just cast it targeting the second Angel Serenity in his graveyard to get back that original Angel Serenity. So some Angel chaining might be going on in the near future here, so let's see what Josh does on his turn.
This matchup, you're kind of tiptoeing around, because you know that there is a, you know that there is a big thing always coming from the opponents at some point on both sides. You're always cognizant of the fact that Restoration, or excuse me, not Restoration, Angel Serenity can be coming at any moment. I mean, it's very apparent on Corvese's side that he has access to it. And how do you want to navigate your turn so that you make sure that you don't get absolutely ruined by an Angel Serenity?
Yeah, so interesting turn here for Josh. He just plays a third land and passes. He does have Restoration Angel, so when the Angel Serenity comes to play targeting the Avacyn Pilgrim, he can blink it, so he'll still have access to 5 mana next turn, potentially. Let's see how Josh plays this turn.
Harry targeting here, looks like he's targeting his Thragtusk, and there is the Restoration Angel going to blink the Avacyn's Pilgrim. So Thragtusk is going to be underneath the Angel Serenity. If that does get removed from play, that's going to be coming back. So not the best first Angel, and oftentimes what a lot of people say in this matchup posted is that it's not the first Angel Serenity that gets the job done, it's the second one.
Yeah, and Josh does have a Fiend Hunter to deal with the Angel Serenity, but he really doesn't need to pull the trigger on that Fiend Hunter right now. He did draw an Acidic Slime. He could play a 5th land and just start going after Harry's mana, which I think is the optimal play here.
Yeah, I can't imagine that he doesn't. You just want to start to bottleneck him on mana, and you mentioned how the mana acceleration, is so important in this matchup. You see McClain is actually able to steal the initiative back, even though he was on the draw this game, being able to blow up lands. And if you remember Harry's mulch, he did not hit any lands off of that, so you can assume that maybe Corvese is a little bit land light right now.
Yeah, if he doesn't have a 5th land, another land here, it's going to be even better for Josh, because he does have that Unburial Rites. He can Unburial Rites a Restoration Angel in his graveyard and blink that Acidic Slime, which would further put Harry back on mana and would give Josh 2, 3, 4 flyers that he could block the Angel Serenity with if he chooses to. So let's see here. Does Josh actually have a mana? It looks like he has an Arbor Elf. Unfortunately, Arbor Elf doesn't have any forest on tap, because Josh wisely Acidic Slime the Overgrown Tomb.
Yeah, and that's often what you're going to see with Acidic Slime, is either they're going to try to bottleneck your mana and just cut you off of one color. Most often going to be white, because the Angel Serenity does cost 3 white. But if they can blow up your forest and actually slow down your Arbor Elves, they're going to take the opportunity to do that. And as you mentioned, the Acidic Slime taking down that land is a big deal. And by playing Arbor Elf here, as Corvese does, impacting the turn back, you can see McClain probably his eyes light up a little bit. All right, I've taken care of that forest, and I maybe can cut off his green sources and not let him operate.
Yeah, so this is actually a great sequence for Josh. Harry misses his 4th land here. Josh, if he chooses to, he can cast Unburial Rites, bringing back that Restoration Angel and getting rid of the Godless Shrine. If you get rid of the Godless Shrine, it turns off Woodland, Cemetery, and Sun Petal Grove as potential lands that can come into play untapped for Harry. So Let's see what Josh does here. He attacks first, dropping Harry down to 14.
Yeah,
It looks like Harry's hand is a lot of 5-drops. He's got Embarrass, he's got Thragtusk, he even has an Angel Serenity in his hand.
And I absolutely love that attack there from McClain, where he even serves with the Avacyn's Pilgrim, just offering up a trade. Now he's going to Unburial Rights that Acidic Slime, going to blow up the Goblet Shrine, just as you mentioned, making it so that if Corvese does draw any of his buddy lands and he just draws a Sun Petal Grove right now, it's going to have to come into play tapped, and he's still going to be stunted moving forward.
Yeah, so even if he does top deck a 4th land, it has to be either an Overgrown Tomb or a Godless Shrine or a Forest in order for him to actually cast a card like Restoration Angel, which we're not sure if he has in his hand or not. So now it might be time for Josh to actually cast that Fiend Hunter and get rid of that Angel Serenity.
It looks like he's going to start his turn off with a little graveyard action. He's going to mulch. His cards are going to turn over a Restoration Angel, Unburial Rights, Temple Garden, and a Woodland Cemetery. So +2 cards there, but the more important thing here is that Restoration Angel that's just been moved into the graveyard.
So now he can Unburial Rights the Restoration Angel again, triggering it, targeting the Acidic Slime, and then getting rid of possibly a Woodland Cemetery, keeping Harry off of black completely. At that point, he's in really good shape. Let's see what Harry does. Is Harry attacking? It looks like Harry's attacking with all his creatures.
Yeah, Josh attacking with all of his creatures.
Yeah.
Coming in here, I mean, these are like suicide Restoration Angels, but at the same time, with Unburial Rights looming and Corvese knows that McClain has lands in his hand, there are no good blocks right now.
Yep.
They do not exist.
Even if he blocks the Acidic Slime and the Angel Serenity dies, he can't block there. He blocks the Restoration Angel. Restoration is just coming back anyway. So it doesn't really matter. He's still forcing damage through. And here we see it. Restoration Angel comes into play, and Acidic Slime takes out the Woodland Cemetery.
So McClain, very far ahead in this game. Just keeps adding to his board. As you said, just pushing damage through, because Unburial Rights is going to allow him to do that. Yes, Angel Serenity does get to eat a Restoration Angel every turn, but that does not matter. Corvese realizes that, and he's going to concede the game thanks to Acidic Slime. So Josh McClain going to win game number 1 here over Harry Corvese. Junk Reanimator Mirror goes to the player who has only 2 Acidic Slimes in his main deck and was able to draw one.
And it just goes to show you how important that mana accelerant is, because Harry didn't have turn 1 mana accelerant. He did have turn 4 Angel Serenity, but Josh had a timely Restoration Angel to protect his Avacyn Pilgrim from getting blinked, so that he could still cast Acidic Slime in the next turn.
Yeah.
So even though a 5/6 on turn 4 seems impressive, the fact is mana denial is so important in this matchup, just because you can't really put that much pressure on your opponent just with a 5/6, because multiple Restoration Angels can just block it, and you're just going to 1-for-1 anyway. Yeah. So Josh kind of had an ideal response to a turn 4 Angel Serenity.
So we take a look at Harry Corvese's sideboard first, as he's going to be on the play for this game. Again, he does have 3 Acidic Slimes in his main deck and the 4th one in his sideboard, so you can assume that's going to come in. He has an additional Angel Serenity as well, a super important card in this matchup. Then things after that start to get a little bit interesting. 3 Deathrite Shamans are almost automatic. 2 Abrupt Decays. Now you can argue things here, because Abrupt Decay can take care of mana sources in Avacyn's Pilgrim and Arbor Elf from his opponent. It can also take care of opposing Deathrite Shamans, so that could be something that he wants to sideboard in. You also see an additional Thragtusk in his sideboard, a Cavern of Souls if he wants to add more mana to his deck. He has to Sever the Bloodline if he wants to control things. But the big one here for me is Selesnya Charm, because Selesnya Charm is very interesting because it's so good against opposing Angel Serenities. But is this matchup about opposing Angel Serenities, or is this matchup about Acidic Slime? That's the question.
Yeah, I really think this matchup is mostly about mana denial. So the cards that matter the most are Acidic Slime, Garruk Primal Hunter to sort of go after your opposing mana creatures. Those cards are really the cards you want. I agree with you with Abrupt Decay. I think you need Abrupt Decay because it deals with opposing Deathrite Shamans. It can also deal with mana creatures if you think you need to. It also can deal with Fiend Hunters. Fiend Hunter is another card that can potentially, especially if you're on the play, if you can go turn 1 Avacyn Pilgrim and your opponent goes turn 1 Avacyn Pilgrim, and you can Fiend Hunter their Pilgrim on turn 2, that's still mana denial, which is very good. So I think Abrupt Decay is a card that you probably want to bring in. Selesnya Charm, I think that's definitely a card that he has in his matchup more for Naya decks, like big Naya decks, to deal with cards like Thundermaw Hellkite. However, I could see him potentially bringing it in this matchup for Angel Serenity, but it's the problem is going to be, what does he want to board out? There's not that many cards that you can effectively board out in this matchup. Thragtusk isn't great in this matchup, but beyond that, there's not many cards that you can really board out. So I think even though it's good at exiling Angel Serenity, I'm just not sure he has enough cards that he can board out for it, considering the other cards that he wants to bring in. On Josh's side of the board, we have a similar sideboard. He's got 2 Deathrite Shamans, 2 more Acidic Slimes going up to 4. He also has 1 copy of Garruk Relentless. Those are the 5 cards I expect him to bring in. He also rounds out his sideboard with 3 copies of Voice of Resurgence, 2 Tristanis, Selesnya Voice, 2 Deadweight, and 2 Sin Collectors, and 1 Opposite Ghost Council. Those cards obviously not ideal in this matchup, but I think really he wants to go for the Deathrite Shaman to sort of act as graveyard removal, and then the mana denial plan of Acidic Slime and Garruk Relentless.
Yeah, I mean, Garruk Relentless is a card that has played a huge role in these matchups, again, because it is mana denial. It also does flip and lets you search out things like Angel Serenity and search out Acidic Slimes and lets you start chaining off that way. What I find really interesting in McClain sideboards, the copies of Deadweight, because if we are just purely on a mana denial strategy and you want to be able to control cards like Avacyn's Pilgrim and Arbor Elf, it's a 1 mana way to be able to do that Junk Reanimator typically does not have access to.
Yeah, my only problem with that card is it's so bad in the late game.
Oh, it's
and with
very
only 2,
narrow.
Yeah, and with only 2 copies, the odds are you're not gonna. If you don't have one in your opening hand, it's just really bad. So I don't think Josh can afford to have those types of dead draws in the mid to late game, which is kind of what you expect this game to go to. If all things being equal, you're probably gonna expect this game to go to the mid to the late game, and you just can't afford to have dead draws in Deadweight.
McClain going to keep his hand. He's going to be on the draw this game. Corvese is mulliganing down to at least 6 right now. So we'll see how this is going to go. I mean, again, we saw Corvese mulligan down to 4 against David Sharfman playing Jun and be able to win. And he actually won in pretty convincing fashion in that game, too. So do not discount anything here because you see a mulligan here from Corvese.
And yeah, definitely one of the decks that can mulligan pretty well in this format is Junk Reanimator, which is part of its appeal. The question is, can Harry's mulligan overcome an aggressive mana denial hand from Josh? That's really what we're going to have to see here. Harry is on the play, so if he has turn 1 mana accelerant, he's still in good shape. The thing about Junk Reanimator is sometimes you'll just see them mulligan in order to get the hand they think they need to win. It's not so often that they'll mulligan just because they have all land or all spells. A lot of times they'll mulligan aggressively because they know there's certain hands they need in certain matchups in order to be successful. So let's see what Harry does here. He's going to check to see if his 6 cards are happy. If he's happy with the 6 cards. Josh is obviously happy with his 7, and it looks like Harry is debating it. And nope, he's going down to 5 here. Wow.
Maybe setting him up for the mulligan to 4 win again. No, you don't think so?
Well, Harry did. Maybe Harry's feeling a little confident. He did win a match. He did win a game after a mulligan to 4, so maybe he's like, meh, not a big deal. Yeah. 5 cards.
Did it once, do it again. Maybe the camera's just not too friendly.
Yeah.
For the soccer coach here.
Well, to be honest, again, there are certain draws that even off of 5 cards are still very, very good for Harry.
Agreed.
And I think part of Junk Reanimator's appeal is the fact that it mulligans well. It generally is very good against mid-rangey decks. You get to play Restoration Angel and Thrag Tusk. So I think that there's just a lot of things going for Junk Reanimator, and the biggest appeal, though, for me at least, is you're going to be playing in a long tournament. You want a deck that mulligans well. The tournaments where you do the best are usually the ones where you don't have to mulligan often, or your deck doesn't punish you that much if you go down to 6 or 5 cards, because it's going to happen throughout the course of a tournament.
It's only natural. It's magic.
Yep.
You are going to mulligan sometimes, believe it or not.
So Harry goes down to 5. He's going to check to see if his 5 cards hand is a keeper. Looks like we have some lands and a Sever the Bloodline at least. So not the best 5-card hand, but certainly not the worst. He's going to lead off here with a Temple Garden and an Avacyn Pilgrim.
Okay. This looks a lot better than I thought it would. Now, of course, a mulch is going to go a long way to undoing this mulligan, potentially a Grizzly Salvage as well. So we'll see what Corvese can find. See if McClain has a mana accelerant too. I think that's a big deal here. Just a Temple Garden passing means he does not.
So mulch would be a huge draw right here. Same thing with the Grizzly Savage, but nope, it looks like Harry just drew land for the turn. He's going to swing over with the Avacyn Pilgrim. Thankfully, Josh doesn't have a mana accelerant, so things aren't too terrible for Harry right here. However, let's see what the mulch from Josh reveals. Looks like 3 lands and a Deathrite Shaman, so there's one of those sideboarded Deathrite Shamans.
So this could play a huge role in this matchup there for McClain. But after that mulch does resolve, it looks like he's going to have to discard something else moving forward.
and it looks like it's going to be an Angel Serenity.
Pretty easy discard, I think.
Yeah, and he does have an Unburial Rights in his hand. I'm not sure if he can discard 2 cards or not. Wow, if he's discarding 2 cards, yeah, it looks like he has to discard 2 cards, so he can discard Acidic Slime and an Unburial Rights, setting himself up for a turn 4 Unburial Rights, Acidic Slime, and destroy one of your lands.
Yeah, that's a pretty big game, actually. I mean, you can make the argument where he could discard their Unburial Rights and Angel Serenity, but I think, again, that this matchup, as we mentioned, is so much more about Acidic Slime than Angel Serenity. That's the card that you want to discard. As you see, McClain has drawn now, this turn, a Garruk Relentless, so he does not have any mana acceleration. The big question here is, does Corvese have a Acidic Slime of his own? He does.
Wow.
Okay.
Huge draw there for Harry. He's got the Acidic Slime to keep Josh off of 4 mana before he can cast Unburial Rights or the Garruk Primal Hunter. So now Josh is going to have to lose his Overgrown Tomb, it looks like. And he doesn't even have a Grizzly Salvage to really cast this turn. So he has no action play. Looks like he just drew a land this turn. Yeah, his hand appears to be Angel Serenity, Restoration Angel, and Garruk along with land, so he doesn't have any plays to make. Let's see if Harry can push the advantage here with a Restoration Angel or another Acidic Slime. Draws his card for the turn, can't make it out. Right now, it looks like he still has that Sever the Bloodline in his hand, so he has protection against Angel Serenity potentially later in the game, if that matters. But so he swings over for 3, dropping Josh down to 15. And wow, there's a Restoration Angel, blinking an Acidic Slime, taking out an Isolated Chapel, so keeping Josh off of black mana currently.
This is a pretty unreal draw for a mulligan of 5 from Harry. I mean, he's really just trying. The scary thing here for Corvese is that he knows that McClain has lands because of mulch.
Yep.
He doesn't have a mana accelerant, but he knows that McClain has lands from the mulch, so he needs to keep him off of 4 lands. But now, oh my goodness,
here is
another Restoration Angel.
So not only now at this point, he doesn't really have to worry that much about keeping Josh off of lands because he's got enough pressure on board to just kill him in a turn. So
McClain's plan of discarding Acidic Slime at the time when he discarded it made perfect sense. Imagine now if he had discarded Angel Serenity instead.
Yeah,
Angel Serenity is the card that gets him back into this game.
And it looks like Harry drew another Acidic Slime.
You got, oh my lord.
So Harry, quite adept at mulliganing to low number.
McClain's going to pick up his last 2 cards into the game. You see a little bit of frustration on his face. How could he not be? Is he going to go back to his sideboard? Corvese taking a bit of a deep breath here, a little buck in his step, up in his chair, and takes a look at the camera with wide eyes as he ties this one back up. Maybe mulliganing is good for him.
And I got to say, granted, that's a little lucky there, but the consistent factor in both games were the player with the mana accelerant ended up winning the match.
Oh yeah,
winning the game rather.
Oh yeah.
So really, that's the most important thing. If one player has a mana accelerant, the other doesn't. It doesn't matter how impressive your mulches are or your Grizzly Salvages are. It really comes down to, do you have a mana advantage over your opponent? And that's what we saw in both these games so far. Despite Harry going down to 5 cards, he was still able to actually pull it out thanks to some timely Acidic Slimes.
We have someone on Twitter, we'll go with Helladad09, wondering if Harry Corvese is now the master of the mulligan. It's hard to argue otherwise.
Yeah.
After these 2 games that we've got to watch him play.
It's the odds of you winning a game after you mulligan to 4 or a game after you mulligan to 5, it's very low. To do it twice in the same tournament is pretty impressive. Both times featured too. He might have done it in the Swiss when we just haven't seen him.
Yeah, we don't know all the story here.
Although we have seen him on camera twice mulligan to 5 and 4 and win both those games. So very impressive mulliganing skills from Harry Corvese. And again, we don't really know, did he mulligan because he knows he has to mulligan if he doesn't have a certain draw, or did he mulligan just because his hands were bad? Obviously, if you mulligan to 5, there's probably one hand where it was just terrible hand. But there's some mulligans where it's just like, if I'm playing the Reanimator Mirror and I don't have a mana accelerant and I don't have the potential for a turn 4 reanimation spell, I pretty much have to ship that hand. It's just too slow in the mirror.
No matter how good your hand looks on the surface, I mean, McClain's hand there with the mulch, I mean, as far as things go, if I'm Josh McClain, I told you that your opponent, Harry Corvese, is going to mulligan to 5, your mulch is going to be borderline perfect because you get to discard not 1, but 2 cards.
Yep.
You're going to be pretty happy with how things are going. Acidic Slime being reanimated on turn 4 on the draw.
Yeah, you have Acidic Slime reanimating turn 4 on the draw, and your opponent mulligan to 5, and you still have an Angel Serenity in your hand with plenty of mana to eventually cast it. And that's the other thing. You had a pretty good mulch, and you have plenty of mana, so even if Harry does go after your lands, as long as you can actually just keep the tempo and he's not able to put enough pressure on you, you'll eventually be able to draw out of it because you have so many lands. But Harry just had too many Restoration Angels and too many Acidic Slimes.
And it's kind of funny, right? Where I think like some people would look at that game and say, like, I think, you know, if I'm Josh McClain right now, what's going through my head of, you know, maybe I just got really unlucky, but, you know, people could make the argument of like, yeah, you're supposed to discard Angel of Serenity there instead of Acidic Slime, but I don't think that's absolute at all.
No.
I think just the way that game broke, as odd as it was, where Corvese drew borderline perfect, where I think in the abstract, with the mulch on turn 2, you're 100% discarding Acidic Slime a lot of the time there. You know, it ends up that maybe discarding Angel of Serenity because of how things broke was correct. That's what makes Magic such an unbelievable game, because the things that changed in that game changed immensely from turn 2 to turn 4, as Corvese is getting himself an advantage again by taking another mulligan.
I just don't think Corvese likes 7 cards. I
No.
think he just chooses. I think I wonder whether or not his win percentage is better when he has less than 7 cards.
I sincerely think, I know, all kidding aside, I sincerely think that these are aggressive mulligans.
Yeah,
Because,
I agree.
you know, the one thing that you often see with aggressive mulligans, you see that with hyper-aggressive decks like Affinity, decks that red-based aggressive decks. That's what you normally see. Now, I know that you and I have been playing Magic for a very long time. Fires of GPMIA, that deck is before my time. But was that a deck that people would aggressively mulligan for mana accelerants with, so that you could just go 1 to 3 to 4 to 5?
The thing that a lot of new players don't understand is that there are certain hands that appear to be good because they have good cards. So a hand like Garruk Primal, Garruk Relentless, Restoration Angel, Thragtusk, and 4 lands might appear good to a newer player. You know, it's like I have the Restoration Angel Thragtusk combo, I have a Planeswalker. It's a pretty good hand. The problem is, if you're on the draw and you're playing the Reanimator Mirror, that is a terrible hand. It is simply too slow, despite the fact that you have some powerful cards. So I think that if you're very skilled with your deck and you've played Magic for a long time, you know there are certain hands that, despite the fact that they might look good on the surface, you have to mulligan them in order to give yourself the best chance of winning. So I think that's the same thing. Like you mentioned, Fires. There were certain hands that you just couldn't keep in the mirror, and I think Harry kind of knows that. And again, the amount that he's mulliganing, going down to 5, going down to 4 in certain instances, part of that has to do with just getting a little unlucky and getting unplayable hands. But I think part of it has to do with the fact that he's probably being a little aggressive with his mulligans because he knows the deck very well, he knows the mirror match, and he knows what hands he can keep and what hands he can't keep.
Yeah, I think he really knows the value of having a mana accelerant, and you know that's part of the reason that I brought up the dead weights in McClain's sideboard, because I 100% agree with you that that card is so narrow that it's not ideal to bring in because it's so bad past like turn 3.
Yeah.
But how important is it to kill a mana accelerant on the opening turns of the game in this matchup? It seems very, very important.
Yeah, and you know the one game where Harry didn't mulligan was game 1, and he didn't have a mana accelerant,
Yeah,
but
crushed.
he did have a pretty good reanimation plan. He had a mulch in his hand, and he had an Embarrass Rights in his hand. So I think if you don't have a mana accelerant, but you think you have the possibility of a turn 4 reanimation spell on the play, I think it's a reasonable keep. However, it just didn't work out for him that game.
So Corvese is going to keep on 5 cards. You see McClain starts off with a Deathrite Shaman, an all-star in this matchup. Corvese going to play a Woodland Cemetery and pass the turn back. You see Corvese's hand is not very exciting. One card that he does have currently in his hand is a Selesnya Charm. But McClain currently does not have a mana accelerant, but Deathrite Shaman can act as a makeshift mana accelerant if there's a Grizzly Salvage or a Mulch involved. You see him tapping 2 mana, and it looks like it is going to be a Grizzly Salvage, so we see acceleration here potentially from McClain, turning over an Overgrown Tomb, an Arbor Elf, an Acidic Slime, another Grizzly Salvage, and an Avacyn's Pilgrim.
So that was a pretty good Grizzly Salvage. He probably would have preferred a couple of more lands to hit so that he could activate his Deathrite Shaman more than just once. However, he does get an Acidic Slime out of the deal and at least 1 land, so if he chooses to, he can actually cast Garruk Relentless next turn. However, given the fact that he has the Acidic Slime now, he probably wants to cast that Acidic Slime on turn 4. So let's see what Harry does this turn. If Harry had a mana accelerant, I would say Josh probably goes for the Garruk here. However, oh wow, so it looks like we have a Mulch too here.
So he's doing just fine for himself.
Yeah, so I don't think he wants to cast the Garruk here. He wants to make sure that Acidic Slime definitely hits play next turn.
Assuming Mulch hits lands, which you see a Woodland Cemetery, it's going to hit at least 1. You see 2 other Mulches and an Acidic Slime go to the bin, and then the Woodland Cemetery go to hand.
Yeah, so now that he also has an Isolated Chapel, Woodland Cemetery, and he also has a Restoration Angel in his hand, so next turn we're definitely going to see that Acidic Slime enter play unless Deathrite Shaman is dealt with.
Yeah.
If Harry has a way to deal with the Deathrite Shaman, then there's a chance that we won't see the Acidic Slime.
I actually like McClain's play a lot here too, where he considered attacking but instead holds back because he realizes that 2 is more than 1.
Yeah.
And so he can actually just remove a card with Deathrite Shaman, but he oddly enough does not do that. I'm a little surprised there, not removing one of those mulchers in the graveyard to have Harry lose 2. He may have gotten a little bit ahead of himself, but at the end of the day, we're going to see him remove a land and cast an Acidic Slime and get this party started yet again. Well, it's going to actually be Unburial Rights on Acidic Slime.
So here's Unburial Rights on Acidic Slime. Either way, it gets the job done. I think I might have preferred to cast the Acidic Slime just because there's a chance Harry might have some sort of graveyard remove spell like Purify the Grave.
Yeah.
It's a little risky. You definitely just want to get that Acidic Slime into play, especially since you have a Restoration Angel in your hand. However, either way, Acidic Slime comes into play, deals with the Woodland Cemetery, leaving only Harry with 2 lands, none of them overgrown to more isolated Godless Shrine. So Harry doesn't even draw a 3rd land and just packs it in.
Yeah, and Harry asks, do you have anything? And Harry knows he has the other slime in his hand and says, do you have ways to kill my lands? McClain says, yeah, I got a Restoration Angel and a slime, man. And Harry is going to pack it up. So Josh McClain from Team Mana Deprived wins this match 2-1 over Harry Corvese in the Junk Reanimator Mirror. It's all about mana acceleration, and in turn, it's all about mana denial.